evening, and welcome to Happening Multicultural Festival. My name is Paola Gomez, and I am Muse Arts Program Director. Before we engage in this very important conversation with a person that I admire very much, and as we engage in a conversation in relation to her experience, not only as member of the Venezuelan diaspora, but also about her work in the amazing installation that we as a community will get to experience, I would like to invite all of you to recognize and to become aware of the space that you are taking, the space that you take both physically and emotionally. Right now, I would like to invite you to recognize the land where you stand, where you work, where you live. And in that recognition, I would like to invite you to also think of the first inhabitants of that land. In my case, I would like to recognize the indigenous communities that have lived on what I know, or what we know as Toronto. In my case, as I said, it's the Huron-Wanda, the Hinachoni, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit. I pay respect to their stewardship and recognize the struggles and the continuous traumas that they had experienced as a consequence of colonization. I would like to honor First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and recognize their contributions in protecting the land and the water, so many like me, refugees and newcomers, can come to this land and feel safe and protected. We know more than ever that that guarantee of protection is not given to everyone. As I said, we are very, very happy to be able to engage in this conversation as part of Happening Multicultural Festival. And I would like to share with you that we are being joined by a powerhouse recognizing the city of Toronto and doing so much and important work in Latin America. Before I introduce her, I would like to talk to you about the collective that she has created as a way to respond also to the realities of a country that is a country that she loves. Cacao Collective is a creative platform for artistic research, curation, and interdisciplinary experimentation. The collective is composed of Toronto-based artists with inquiry and commitment to community building through the arts, through storytelling, and to Latin American communities. We had with us Victoria Mata, the creator and choreographer of Cacao. She is a Canadian Venezuelan polylinguistic dancer artist with a background in expressive arts, first-generation immigrant settler in Toronto. Mata's vocabulary encompasses stories of belonging, cultural preservation, while examining socio-political tensions of being a citizen of the Americas. Victoria, it is a great honor to engage in this conversation with you. As we welcome you into this space, we would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your practice, and to introduce us into the experience that many of us are so lucky to be able to have in the upcoming weeks here in Toronto.
Gracias, Paola. Thank you. As always, it's a huge honor and for me a big privilege to be part of these spaces, be part of the events that Muse Arts puts together. Is not only important, vital, but also creates a nest or a cradle for artists like myself to present art and to present our visions, our ideas, our passions, our questions. And yeah, the installation that we're talking about today wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for your invitation and for the amazing work, the legacy that you're leaving here in Toronto. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. And as we start this conversation, because this is truly a collaboration with a Cacao Collective and Happening Multicultural, it is for this immersive multidisciplinary window installation that makes a reflection and inspires a conversation and illustrates the stories of cacao forest in Venezuela. I really love this name, the Conuco. And I hope those who are connected to this conversation this evening can repeat with me, Conuco. This is a Spanish language word. And I would love for Victoria to share with us a little bit more of what this installation is about, because I also understand that the intention is to illustrate the realities of the cacao growers, but in the context of the political tensions and realities that are not only impacting farmers in Latin America in general, but also Venezuelans in this current political climate.
Correct. Yeah, correct. So I want to back up a little bit and talk a little bit about the bigger project. So Cacao, a Venezuelan Lament, is a production in development that's been in development for about 5 years now. And it's a result of many years of research, my personal research, as well as collaborators. My family comes from, we were cacao farmers. And I say were because at some point the family got split up. And once the family separated and migrated to the capital, the practice of growing cacao was lost. So with that disjunction, that's where I become curious about the void, the cultural void, the memories I had as a child that no longer were part of my family. So that disparity. In that disparity, because of the complicated family relations, I didn't have access to the same traditions that I did as I was a child. Also living in the US and Canada, and it's just my mom and I who migrated from the family. It's really hard to stay connected to that part of our family story. So I started going back and I started connecting with farmers that were not necessarily my direct family, but that have become family, that have become my elders, that have become my my companions. And sorry.
No, please don't apologize. I just want to say that everything that you're saying is resonating so much and to the same level that you're experiencing right now. And the reason for that is I come from coffee growers, and you have been in the area where I live. I'm from a small town in Colombia. So what you're saying in terms of that lost, that thing that was lost from our experiences, and that probably we're not going to be able to pass it on to other generations because we're not there. It feels like that, like a loss, and I am feeling that same. I'm going through that same feeling right now, so I can relate to the emotional, how emotional this can become, and I thank you for being vulnerable with us as well.
Thank you. This production, Cacao Lament, becomes a way for me to imagine what it would be like for me to go back to my own family. So over the past 12 years, I've built very strong relationships with cacao farmers from the area of the country where my family comes from, which is the eastern part of Venezuela, but also from the western part of Venezuela. And cacao grows mainly on the coast of Venezuela, so it's by the Caribbean in the north, but also in parts of the mountain. And through the imagination, I've journeyed into a process of healing. I've journeyed into a process of calming that void. And it's really been because of the relationships with cacao farmers, with growers, with other women and men who have opened their doors, their families, their stories, and have welcomed me as a member of their families. So when we had the invitation for this installation for happening, it was an opportunity for us to have a small excerpt of some of the material that we're working with. So we're working with about 12 years of documentation. Some of it is very shaky and not very well recorded because it's just me with a little recording camera 10 years ago. We have photographies, testimonials, soundscape recordings, quite a variety of a spectrum of documentation, and that not all of it will have a chance to be part of the final production. So with this installation, we wanted to share two things. One is in 2017, we did an installation for a Luna Theater that was an immersive experience. So it was large screens. The audience came in and sat in the middle of big cacao circles and witnessed a number of visuals that were both testimonies of cacao farmers, interpretations with my body and dance, as well as music compositions from a dear friend of mine and also composer of the production, Jacqueline Rago. She's also Venezuelan and lives in the Bay Area in California. And that experience was a very beautiful experience. And I felt we were able to really bring an audience into an intimate aspect of cacao and chocolate that we sort of take for granted, or it feels like we take for granted in Canada because we have so much access to all sorts of organic chocolate and chocolate bars. You go to Fiesta Farms or any store, and there's an array of chocolate. And to me, what I always found interesting and really sad is that distance between purchasing chocolate and whose hands are behind the cacao bean that was picked for that chocolate. So for this installation at TO Live, so TO Live is a platform where they connect three of Toronto's major theaters. Because during the pandemic, the theaters have had to close, they've opened up their windows to be a small platform for various artistic expressions. And so we had access to that space. And then with the invitation of Happening, we said, great, let's join forces. So the installation is at the window of the St. Lawrence Market down on Front Street. And we have 3 screens and we have 1 screen. And we're sharing almost like stepping into the world, the visual world that will be part of the final presentation of Cacao Venezuela Lament next year. And with the screens, we're sharing aspects of different aspects of the culture around cacao. So, for example, the Kiti Plus, which is a national instrument that's played with 3 small, an ensemble of bamboo sticks, and it's a percussive instrument, and showing elements of the of the environment of where cacao is grown. We're also taking the opportunity to share some of the faces and the hands of the individuals who've accompanied me over the last 12 years. And with that, also display some of the well, we're going to be displaying cacao beans and wooden machetes, which we're using in the production, and some plastic buckets, which are really common to carry the cacao beans around. So it's an opportunity to just a window in the world that we have of our production.
This is amazing, and I have so many questions. Before I ask of the when and who's involved in terms of how many people, I'm sure that there is so many people involved in this process with you, because this is a big undertaking, you know, like the many years that you have make reference to, but also the different mediums that you're using to be able to present this work. I'm sure there are a bunch of collaborators, and I will ask that. But before I go there, I just felt a connection to with the interest of time, you know, like archiving those times and those memories as part of storytelling. And also the fact that storytelling have all type of feelings involved on it, you know, like the struggle, the challenge, but the resilience, the love, the fun, the party. So can you share a little bit of that experience as well? Because that connection and that emotion that I had referenced before, as I connected to when you were speaking, comes from realizing that those memories are filled with all of the spectrum of the emotions. Can you share a little bit of that?
Absolutely. So some of I think as I was listening to you, Paula, some of the memories that came to my mind is waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and covering the body with white clothes so that the mosquitoes are not as attracted to the sweaty body. Covering almost every part of the body except for the mouth and the eyes, and walking through a forest, a very humid forest, with very little light, and setting the buckets and everyone spreading out, and then starting to pick cacao. And cacao grows in a pod that comes, if this is the cacao tree, it just comes as a pod from it. And then, so the cacao pod is snapped off the branch, and then the cacao pod is cracked open with a machete. And then with the fingers, the cacao beans are picked and pushed out of the pod. Once the cacao is in the bins, there's sort of a split of the process, and how cacao is then processed is often connected to the social, political, economic reality of Venezuela. Some of the smaller cacao farmers, the smaller productions, the more family-oriented productions, they will either ferment the cacao or just dry it outside at the front of their homes. And then once the cacao if it's fermented, it gets fermented and then dried. And then if it's not fermented, it's just dried. Once it's dried, it's grounded. Once it's grounded, it's either sold as powder or as a paste. But a reality of the cacao farmers that I work with, because of the economic situation in Venezuela, they can't dry the cacao beans so often. And we've seen this more and more throughout the years as the economy has worsened in the country, is once the cacao is picked, then it's sold to have a very quick exchange. So for cacao experts in the world, the Europeans and the external market or the industry of chocolate, there's a struggle because they want the cacao that's fermented and that's dried and that goes through the process. But sometimes farmers don't have time and they can't sell the cacao in that way, so they have to sell it as quick as possible. So there's quite an international battle around the deterioration of the quality of the cacao bean in Venezuela. And because of that tension, and some of the stories that we're going to be sharing in the installation, is a reality of the farmers is having whether it's other farmers or neighbors, that will steal the cacao from their conuco, and we'll go back to conuco, from their plot of land, so from their farm. They will light the farm on fire. So then the family has to then start from zero again. But this is a way of then the other, whether it's an individual, a neighbor, or other cacao farmers, then they got access to free cacao that then they were able to sell because of their necessities as well. So it's created, there's a reality of burnings of cacao fields that has become really problematic, and that has been a tremendous setback for cacao farmers, for their economic and then also emotionally and physically having to restore their farms. And then connecting it back to Conuco. So Conuco is the individual farmer's plot of land where they grow their cacao. So it's not necessarily the large plots of fields where cacao is grown for like bigger cacao companies or production companies, but it's specific to the smaller farm family farmers. Mm-hmm.
That is fascinating, and I have to express gratitude, Victoria, for creating a space through the arts to tell these very important stories that, as you mentioned before, when we are living in these countries, we get things for granted. We just go to a store and get whatever chocolate we want without recognizing or even analyzing the personal, social, and political realities of that process. And so I think what you are working on, and that started as part of your personal experience, also becomes an element of activism to move towards buyers having more awareness of how these processes go, and therefore we also make use of our own powers. I think that is extremely important. And I want to go back to ask the question of who's involved in such a big undertaking, because this is big.
Yeah. So the production, there's about 20 individuals. So we're a group. It's a large cast. We have our creative producer, Allison Wong, and who's also a lead in the installation. But for the installation specific, the hands and the magic behind the visual representation that will be shared with the installation is Alexandra Jelis, who's a Venezuelan, Colombian, Canadian multidisciplinary artist, visual artist. She works with doing a lot of sound, transforming spaces with sound and computers and sensors, and really taking the experience of the person who's witnessing an art or a sculpture or an installation and expanding the senses. So you'll walk by, there'll be a sensor that then triggers a video, that then triggers a sound, that then triggers something to move on the ground, and it's very dynamic. Alejandra Guerra is Colombian-Canadian artist who's also a visual artist, and her art she's also an illustrator. So her eye and her lens and her art has a way of just telling a story. Every image, every scene, every frame is adorned with lines and color and a very deep and sensible quality to it. We have Daniela Rango, who's our assistant or my right hand, who's just really supporting the team to just make all the different aspects come together, because working under a pandemic means that we all have to work in silos, and then sort of everything comes together, and someone has to be the middle person that puts together these ideas, because under normal circumstances, we would all show up the day of the mounting the installation at 8:00 in the morning. Everybody shows up with the equipment, all the gear, everybody's there, and we're working for 2 days straight putting up the installation. This time around, we have to pre-design everything, communicate with TO Live, with the venue, with the St. Lawrence Arts Center, and depending what the next couple of weeks look like, there might only be one person able to be in the space. So we're going to have to switch. So it's quite complicated working under these circumstances. And we feel really fortunate because we are able to still produce. We're able to still show. We're still able to share. You know, we may not be able to yet show our production, but we're able to show and share aspects and short excerpts of the work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is, and thank you for shedding the light on the aspect of having to adapt, having to create new ways to also tell the story. And as we know, we have 2 more days of the current state order, which is until June 2nd, and we don't know if it needs to be extended, but that will be okay if it is required, because the priority is the entire community safety and well-being. But as you make reference to the fact that this is also a way in which the story is told, in a way to engage communities and to involve more folks to witness and to experience what is happening. I'm just fascinated by what you explain in relation to the contributions of all these other very talented artists that I have the privilege of having seen their work before. So this is extremely powerful. But I want to bring us to the moment in which it has been decided as part of the collaboration with Happening that we were going to go one step forward, that we were going to go to the next level of interacting with the community. And that interaction will be through the letters of hope that will be sent, or the postcards of hope, that in which we are engaging communities to get involved and to write letters or postcards to cacao growers in Venezuela. Do you want to talk a little bit about this? Because Absolutely. This is super cool.
Absolutely. So originally we said, okay, we're going to do the installation, and we have performers, we have the beautiful, talented cast of the production that we wanted them to engage in a short performance as audience was interacting with the installation, and we had to change our plans. So currently we have this Conuco postcard campaign, and what it is sharing, inviting Toronto, whether both Venezuelan diaspora, and we feel that this is a very special opportunity to connect to a really important aspect of our country, but also for all of Toronto. And any chocolate lover, anybody that are farmers, anybody that is interested or invested in the land and how our food is grown, and is curious or passionate about whose hands are behind that labor before we get the privilege of eating it and consuming it. So in that, great, we may not be able to gather, but we can collect postcards. So the invitation is to get your Conuco postcard kit, which will include a blank postcard that you can put any messages to the cacao farmers. And it doesn't matter if people don't know who the cacao farmers are. We are going to have at the installation, we're sharing who has been part of our project for the last 12 years. But I think it's also beyond that. And it's just an opportunity to create a bit of consciousness around, oh, that real hands, real people's sweat pick cacao beans that goes into the chocolate that I consume. And so, yes, it's particularly to the farmers that have been part of our project, but I think the connection is a much bigger connection. Mm-hmm. And you'll also get a postcard with basic information about the project and about Muse Art. So how to stay connected with this amazing festival, how to stay connected with TO Live. And I think something that TO Live is providing right now is, under the circumstances, an opportunity for space to be used and transformed in ways that are different. So we may not be able to invite an audience of 200 individuals to come see the installation on opening night, but we can share it with everybody that's walking on Front Street over the course of the month of June, and share with all those individuals that walk on Front Street every day. So it's expanding, to me as a performer and as a producer and a creator, it expands the notion of sharing art. It doesn't only have to be with a stage and with an audience. There's so many other ways that now we have to start flipping our performance arts world and recreating and reorganizing our ideas of what an audience is. So now with these postcards, anybody, and it's not only Toronto, because on the Facebook and also on our website, you'll be able to find the form. We have a Google form where you can sign up, and we will send you the postcard kit. So it's not only limited to Toronto. So then now we get to make connections with so many different parts. And then we will send all the postcards to Venezuela, to our farmers. Not our farmers, but the farmers, our collaborators.
Well, I think there are so many beautiful things about integrating this aspect of community arts. And again, we are speaking once again about collaboration, about the use of different mediums and forms to bring up the message and to also shine the spotlight into the project. And this is the beautiful aspect of Victoria's vision here, is the 12 years, but it's a continuum, a conversation. It has to deal with lives, it has to deal with experiences, and it has to deal with the social, the personal, the political, the interrelational aspects of cacao growing, of chocolate consuming. And I think these are deep conversations that are worth to be part of. And I am so grateful, Victoria, for your leadership, for your wisdom, for your risk taking, and for taking all of us into that journey with you. Because as I said at the very beginning, you are a powerhouse, but you move us to challenge ourselves with these very important questions. And I thank you very much for that. Once again, I am extremely, extremely proud and happy and filled with joy that you, Victoria, and all the amazing artists that are part of Cacao Collective had accepted this invitation to be part of the festival. You have been part in a couple of other ways, and we are extremely grateful for your wisdom and for the experience and knowledge that you bring into the space. And once again, this is a testament of the contributions. It's a testament of the knowledge and talent that the diaspora brings into the communities, into our communities in Toronto. So a testament that we are not only receivers of culture, but we're also creators of culture, and we are part of that colorful and beautiful mosaic of art and culture of Toronto. Victoria, thank you very much for being here. Once again, our gratitude not only to you, but the entire team that makes these spaces possible and that make that installation possible for all of us to enjoy and to experience. My gratitude as well to the team of ASL interpreters this evening. We are extremely grateful that you support the process, so our information and the things that we want to say are shared with a larger community. We definitely are grateful for that. And to all of you who are connected with us today, this evening, our gratitude. We are happy that you're here. We hope you continue connected throughout the last events of the festival. We still have 2 days to go. Tomorrow, the entire day, we have events going on, and at night we have our music night, and for Sunday we have our award ceremony. So don't miss those events as well. And I'm going to just leave the space open for Victoria to give us any closing comments that you may have. Otherwise, we are concluding this opening. Every time I think of opening, I'm like thinking in my mind of like a party-like sound. So, Victoria.
Thank you. Gracias. Gracias a todo el equipo de Muse Art. Thank you to the entire team of Muse Art. And on behalf of Cacao Lament, and not only the artists, but also the farmers, and then all of our ancestors, we invite you to come and join us the month of June down at Front Street for a little snippet of a window into the world that we've been engaged with over the last few years. And I personally want to thank you, Paula, for this conversation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for all your generosity and all your wisdom. Thank you for bringing those voices and creating the space. Our gratitude, our deep gratitude. Thank you, everyone, and we hope you have a good rest of the enjoy the weekend. It's going to be a nice weekend, so enjoy, and we will see you soon. Take care. Bye.